target for Chelsea isn't to win the Premier League. That's a fly. So the target for Chelsea isn't to win the Premier League this season. It has to be to get into the Champions League. And freaking fly. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another video on the channel. Today it's prediction time because the season is almost upon us. So I'm going to go through each team in the Premier League and we're going to see where I rank them. Now to start with, Sheffield United are 20th. They're going to be bottom of the league in my opinion. The reasons for this, they haven't invested that much. You know, they've only bought like a few players that probably you could argue are just championship level. And then they've also sold Ndiaye. And there are news breaking out now that Burnley are buying Sander Berge. Or Berg, I'm not sure how you pronounce his name, but the midfielder at Sheffield United. And it's just all pointing towards the championship for that team. I'm terribly sorry, Sheffield United fans, but it is what it is. In 19th, I'm going for Luton Town. I don't think they'll stay up either. I think both of these newcomers are going down. I think they'll be sort of a cannon fodder. Might be decent at home, both of these sides, and probably not easy 3 points necessarily, but both sides, you know, they've invested poorly. Sheffield United have been losing key members of their team. Luton maybe not so much, but still haven't invested that much. And it generally feels like they're just taking this opportunity in the Premier League to build a proper championship team so they can actually come back in after 2 seasons and do this properly then. I don't know, it's weird. In 18th, I've gone for Wolverhampton Wanderers, or Wolves. Now the reason why they're 18th and I'm expecting them to go down is because they don't have the money to invest in the squad. They just lost their manager today, as I record this. Lopetegui has actually walked out the door, and I think the former Bournemouth manager is about to take over. So remains to be seen how he can go, you know, what he can do, but I expect him to be battered on Old Trafford in the first game. So I don't expect much from them, but you know, we'll have to see. In 17th, I expect Everton to actually manage to just about save themselves once again, but they could just drop in, you know, they could just drop beneath Wolves. It's tricky. It's a very tricky one to predict, but I'm expecting either one of those to go down. In 16th, I've gone with Nottingham Forest. Forest have invested, they got a new left back, but other than that, not much happening. But you know, they've got Gibbs White, who is a class player in my opinion, and they got Brennan Johnson, and they've got 1 year experience in the Premier League. Yes, they lost Navas in goal, but they're gaining Matt Turner, possibly Dean Henderson's coming back to the club, so things look alright over there. It just looks kind of settled. So yeah, 16th for Nottingham Forest. And then Fulham, they've gone in at number 15. I expect them to be sort of second season syndrome, could drop down this list, by the way. You know, Mitrovic, we don't know what's going to happen with him. So Raul Jimenez, it remains to be seen how he's gonna fit in that Fulham side. He's already scored a goal in pre-season, but you know, can he do what Mitrovic is doing if Mitrovic isn't gonna be at the club? I don't know. Remains to be seen. In 14th, I've gone for Crystal Palace. Roy Hodgson is back in town at Crystal Palace. He did wonders with the squad last season after he took over from Patrick Vieira. So I generally think Palace could do all right this season. They could be better. I mean, I've seen a lot of people predicting them to go 10th, 11th, 12th, something like that. I can see like lower half. So the lower table, basically I can see them finishing 11th. That's basically it. But I don't think they will. I think they're going to finish 14th. But this pack that we're going through right now is really difficult to predict. In 13th, I've gone for Bournemouth. Now, their new manager has done well in the Spanish division in La Liga, especially against the big sides. He's only been losing like 1-0 and stuff like that. But I mean, losing is losing. You don't get any points from it. But, you know, he's not getting thrashed. So, seems organized, high pressing, high energy. Bournemouth has some good players like Solanke, you know, in there. So I expect them to do okay. In 12th, I've gone for West Ham. Now, West Ham, decent team, sold Declan Rice, lost their biggest player, will be in the Europa League, so that could take its toll. So maybe they'll rock about a little bit less in there. But I think, they're investing it already. They're going for Maguire and McTominay, and they're going for Edson Alvarez. So I think, Edson Alvarez will come in for Declan Rice. If McTominay comes in as well, that's a little bit more depth that you got there. If Maguire comes in, that's leadership and, in my opinion, a defender who is actually quite good, but he does make mistakes. So I think West Ham might do okay this season. I don't see them being in the relegation scrap like last season, but anything can happen. It's the Premier League. So in 11th, I've got Burnley. Now, a lot of people have been predicting them doing quite well, going quite high in the table. I think that might happen. Yeah, I mean, Winston Kompany is a really capable manager. At least, in the Belgian Pro League, he's done really well. And of course, if you look at it in, the Championship, he did pretty well as well. So, yeah, remains to be seen how his style of play fits in the Premier League and if this Burnley squad can do the business. But they've got some decent players in. They've spent money. I think they'll do just fine. And in number 10, it's Brentford. So this could go lower. They don't have Ivan Toney in the, until like January because of the suspension, and they've lost David Raya. So his distribution, oftentimes against Man City and the bigger clubs, we saw them go long. David Raya goes long, hits Toney, who nuts it down to Mbeumo, who drives with the ball. So you could see how Brentford sort of had a plan there. It's going to be interesting to see how it goes for them because they didn't have a really good preseason. They've actually been losing games, drawing games, and not really winning anything. So, yeah, they could do very poorly this season, and this might look like I'm an idiot, but, well, remains to be seen. In at number 9, I've got Brighton. Now, the reason I've gone Brighton here is because I just, they're in the Europa League for the first time. Yes, they've invested in João Pedro and stuff like that, but they've also lost some big players, in McAllister. So they could lose more big players. They could lose Caicedo as well, and if they do that, then that's kind of a big thing, losing McAllister and Caicedo, two of the best players of your team last season. It's a bit much, and especially with the other teams above them, it's just ridiculous. I mean, the other teams above them are so good. So in at number 8, I've gone for Tottenham. Now, I expect Tottenham to be very attractive. They're going to play really good football. They're going to score a bunch of goals, and they're going to do some really good business. The problem with Tottenham, I think they're going to, their defense is going to be poor. They're going to concede a lot of goals. And, they're going to be attractive for the neutral. The Tottenham fans might have a few heartaches up their sleeve, but it remains to be seen. Genuinely, if I were a Tottenham fan, I'd be mortified by it, but also excited by this prospect. In at number 7, I've gone for Newcastle United. Now, Newcastle last season had the element of surprise, and it got them all the way to the Champions League. This season, they don't have that anymore. Teams are going to sit back and try and relax and just hit them on the counter, which might work very well. And it might mean that Newcastle have a harder time of scoring, a harder time of defending, the counters and all that. Of course, they've strengthened well, getting in Tonali and other players, but I still think they're going to have a hard time this year. They also have the Champions League to think about, and they haven't strengthened the depth in the side, even though they've got some class players like Tonali and Harvey Barnes in the squad. If you have the Champions League, you're going to have to increase the depth of your squad. It's just very simple. In number 6, I've gone for Aston Villa. Now, Aston Villa is a fantastic football club, really well run. They got Unai Emery in there actually helping out a lot and improving the squad. Class manager. They have the UEFA Conference League, and I expect them to win that. I expect them to go all the way and win that and be Europa League, anyway next season, even if they don't accomplish it in the Premier League. But they just have such a good squad. Moussa Diaby, very exciting. Ollie Watkins, very exciting as well. You know, the two of them up front together could be delicious. And then you have Kamara and Douglas Lewis, and you have Tielemans. You know, so yeah, they got some quality players. They've got a good goalkeeper and some really quality players in this team. And I expect them to go, you know, to do really well in the league. So, the final five, and it's sort of the classic big teams left, and possibly all of these teams could be getting Champions League, because 5th place this season could give us Champions League football. But in at number 5, I've gone for Chelsea. Now, the reason for this, before you start slating me, you know, I think there are so many new elements in this Chelsea team. A new manager, new players, you know, so much going on there that, and of course there are injuries, and Kunku's already injured until December likely. So I think it'll take time for Chelsea. This is going to be sort of a learning season, and getting in the Champions League is probably the target for the season. The target for Chelsea isn't to win the Premier League. That's a fly. So the target for Chelsea isn't to win the Premier League this season. It has to be to get into the Champions League. And freaking fly. So, in at number 4, and this is where I kind of, you know, number 4 and number 3, like a lot of other people, I've been differing, going back and forth between these two teams. I've decided to put Manchester United 4th. Now, the reason for this, they've invested very well. They've invested very, very, very well, actually. Fixed their goalkeeping issue, or should have, but Onana still has mistakes in him. They got Mason Mount into the midfield. They've got Højlund, and yeah, it's pronounced Højlund apparently, not Højlund, but Højlund. So they got Højlund up top, and it does hit me as a really good transfer window for Manchester United, a healthy transfer window. They're also getting rid of some deadwood players, or, you know, sort of deadwood, their former captain and stuff like that. But they're getting rid of some players that actually, you know, yeah, it's good to get rid of these guys and could actually help push the club forward. I just wonder, with the Champions League now a factor at Manchester United, do they have the squad with Varane, who is usually an injury-prone player? Luke Shaw himself, you know, has been very familiar with injuries. Rashford as well. Mount was injured like most of last season. I just think a lot of these players are injury-prone. Could we see, with the added games, you know, the added pressure and the added time and everything like that the depth of the squad isn't big enough to go all the way? I do think one factor that might change this is Erik ten Hag. I really think he's a brilliant manager. He's done really well with Manchester United. He's come in and he's been very assertive, and he's done very well. So Man United could go up in this table, but I expect them to finish 4th. Now, in the number 3, I've gone for Liverpool. The reason I've gone for Liverpool here is because they don't have a 6. If they don't get a 6, I mean, if they get Romeo Lavia, this could push them up the table, but I still think they'd finish 3rd. I think the gap between Liverpool and Arsenal and Manchester City, who are left in this table, it's just a bit too much right now. They have a fantastic forward line, but they're really fragile at the back, and the fact that they've just got rid of Fabinho, who basically was their 1-6, it just leaves them open in midfield. And looking at them in pre-season, they've been conceding goals and stupid chances. It's just been so open, and similar to Tottenham, they're going to be scoring a lot of goals, but they're also going to be conceding a lot of goals. So, number 1 and number 2 are left. We have Manchester City at top, Arsenal come in 2nd place. Now, hard for me to do this as an Arsenal fan, of course, but I'll try to stay impartial. I think Arsenal will finish 2nd. I think anything less than 2nd would be a failure for Mikel Arteta and his men. Anything less than the trophy, some would say, but, you know, winning the FA Cup, progressing far in the Champions League and regaining a Champions League place could be a decent option. I still think Man City has too much, although I think the gap will be so small, and just like a lot of other issues here, this could go either way. You know, Man City, they have a very small squad right now. I expect them to add to that. I don't know who's going to come in, but I expect them to add a player to their group to increase the potential of the squad. Arsenal, on the other hand, they have Declan Rice, they have Thomas Partey, they have Martin Odegaard. They can also play Kai Havertz in there. They can play Trossard in there. There's so much depth in that midfield. There's so much depth in the defense. There's so much depth in the attack. But again, is it enough to, bridge the gap on the treble winners? Maybe it is. Maybe I shouldn't be this pessimistic, but I am. I'm sorry. This is what I think, and yeah, that's my prediction. So if you did enjoy it, please consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel to help us grow the community. But that's going to be all for today. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think about this prediction? Do you agree, disagree? Is there, what are your predictions? I'll see you next time. Bye bye.